Elena spent the night reviewing personnel files, searching for exactly the right combination of brilliance and unconventional thinking. By morning, she had her list, names that made the EDC director raise his eyebrows. A theoretical physicist whose last paper got him laughed out of academia. A mechanic with no college degree. A hacker we just released from juvenile detention. Director Okafor scrolled through the tablet, his frown deepening. And you want Dr. Kazemi? The man thinks conventional physics is optional. That's exactly why I need them, Elena said, tapping the alien power core she'd smuggled into his office. Convention is what the hegemony expects. They've cataloged human thinking and believe they understand our limitations. These people think beyond those boundaries. The director sighed, authorization already half-entered. The resources you're requesting will be noticed. We've got hegemony observers everywhere, which is why we're hiding in plain sight. Elena pulled up the proposal she'd spent the night drafting. The Hegemony Orbital Reclamation and Recycling Initiative. They've made it clear they think we're barely more than clever monkeys, so let's be good monkeys and clean up their mess. 3 days later, Elena stood at the entrance to an abandoned mining complex in the Australian outback, watching as military transports delivered equipment and personnel. The facility had been mothballed decades ago when its ore deposits were exhausted, but the extensive underground network of tunnels and chambers made it perfect for their needs. Dr. Amir Kazemi was the first to arrive, stepping from the transport with wild hair and wilder eyes, already talking before his feet hit the ground. Commander Reyes, I've been analyzing the hegemony power distributions during their demonstration on Mars. Their technology operates on principles I've theorized about for years. They're manipulating dimensional boundaries as a power source. Rosa Chen arrived next, wiping grease from her hands after apparently spending the flight tinkering with the transport's engines. Your bird flies like it's dragging anchors, she told the pilot before turning to Elena. So where's this alien tech that needs fixing? The team assembled over 48 hours. 36 specialists representing every field from quantum computing to materials science to theoretical xenobiology. They gathered in what had once been the mine's main staging area, now converted into a briefing theater, as Elena stood before them. The hegemony believes they've given us trash, she said, activating the holographic display. Images of the orbital junkyard appeared, twisted metal, shattered components, dead ships. They expect us to salvage what primitive materials we can understand and dispose of the rest. But they've made a critical mistake. Elena zoomed in on specific components, highlighting energy signatures and material compositions. They judge technology by their standards, not by potential. Every piece up there represents a different approach to solving universal problems, faster than light travel, energy generation, material science. Some approaches they abandoned. Others came from species they conquered and then deliberately fragmented the knowledge. She looked across the faces watching her, some skeptical, some curious, all brilliant in their own ways. We're going to take these discarded pieces and see possibilities they can't imagine. We're going to build something that doesn't follow their rules because we never learned those rules in the first place. Jin Wu, the teenage hacking prodigy, raised his hand. Build what exactly? Elena smiled. A ship, but not just any ship, one that will change the balance of power in the galaxy. They believe they understand humanity's capabilities. We're going to show them how wrong they are. Dr. Kazemi stood before a hovering piece of alien technology, his eyes gleaming with the fervor Elena had hoped for when recruiting him. 3 weeks into Project Phoenix, and already their understanding of hegemony technology had evolved beyond what any human government thought possible. It's beautiful, Kazemi whispered, circling the device suspended in the containment field. They abandoned this drive system centuries ago, but not because it was flawed. They found something that worked better for their specific biology. Elena studied the schematic hovering beside the physical component. Can we make it work? Better than they ever could, Kazemi replied. Their neural structures process spatial relationships differently. They literally cannot conceptualize the modifications I'm proposing because their brains evolved to think in different patterns. It would be like trying to explain color to a species with no eyes. Across the cavernous underground laboratory, Rosa Chen's testing bay erupted in a shower of sparks, drawing everyone's attention. Rather than panic, the former mechanic whooped with delight. "That's it," she shouted, emerging from a cloud of dissipating smoke. The thruster alignment was backward the whole time. They designed it for a species with reversed understanding of directional momentum. Elena hurried over, concerned about potential damage to both equipment and personnel. "Are you okay?" Rosa grinned, holding up a modified component that pulsed with blue-green light. "More than okay. I just doubled our propulsion efficiency by installing it wrong by hegemony standards. Their loss is our gain." The project's breakthroughs accelerated after that realization. The team began deliberately examining hegemony technology from incorrect perspectives, finding advantageous modifications that the aliens had never considered. Jin Wu, working with a team of computer specialists, made perhaps the most significant discovery. The teenager had been attempting to interface human computing systems with alien data cores, with limited success. "The problem isn't our hardware," Jin announced during the daily briefing. "It's that their information architecture is fundamentally different. They process data sequentially, while human brains jump between connections." He projected a complex neural map. "So I stopped trying to make our systems think like theirs and built this instead. An interface that translates between architectures." Elena watched as the system demonstrated its capabilities, processing hegemony navigational data through human-designed algorithms and producing results faster than the aliens' own systems. "This is revolutionary," she said quietly. "Not just for the Phoenix, but potentially for every human hegemony interaction." Jin shrugged with the casual confidence of youth. "It was obvious once I stopped trying to follow their rules. Their security systems are actually pretty basic if you approach them from directions they never considered." The team's progress shifted into overdrive after these fundamental breakthroughs. Components that had been deemed incompatible began working in harmony once human innovation bridged the gaps. Technologies the hegemony had abandoned as inefficient became cornerstones of the Phoenix design when paired with human ingenuity. During the 6th week, as they tested a hybrid power coupling, the entire facility's lights flickered. Power surged through Australian electrical grids, causing blackouts across 3 states. The energy release was detected by hegemony orbital monitors. "We need to contain this," Elena said as they scrambled to shut down the test. "Jin, can you help me hack into the meteorological databases?" Within an hour, all reports of the incident had been altered to show a massive solar flare affecting Earth's electromagnetic field. The hegemony observers accepted the explanation without question, never considering that humans could produce energy signatures of such magnitude. That night, looking at the first complete blueprint of the Phoenix, Elena allowed herself a moment of hope. "They think they've given us scraps," she told her exhausted team. "But what they've really given us is everything we need to change the galaxy." Marcus Wong floated through the tertiary maintenance shaft of the hegemony dreadnought Indomitable, his magnetic boots the only thing keeping him oriented in the zero-gravity environment. Like all human technicians assigned to alien vessels, he was considered little more than an organic tool, useful for accessing the ship's smaller conduits where the bulkier hegemony engineers couldn't fit. Human Wong, recalibrate junction 47 Delta and proceed to level 6 for filtration maintenance. The disembodied voice of his supervisor buzzed through his earpiece with the usual tone of bored contempt. "Acknowledged," Marcus replied, suppressing his smile as he worked. His assigned tasks were perfect cover for his real mission, mapping every system aboard the massive warship. The hegemony had been so confident in their superiority that they never considered the danger of giving humans access to their technology, even in a limited capacity. Marcus had modified his standard-issue diagnostic tool with components smuggled from Elena's team, allowing it to passively scan and record far more than the aliens realized. 3 decks below, He encountered an unexpected ally. Security Officer Thax, a six-limbed Varaxian, whose species had been among the first absorbed into the hegemony, cornered him in a rarely used cargo hold. "Your work efficiency exceeds parameters," Thax said, mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was their version of whispered speech. "You are accessing systems beyond your assignment." Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving toward the emergency transmitter hidden in his tool belt. But instead of sounding an alarm, Thax extended a data crystal from one of his secondary limbs. 300 cycles ago, my world was where Earth is now," the alien said, voice modulator adjusted to its lowest setting. "We were once innovators, creators of great works. Now we maintain what others design, our cultural memory deliberately fragmented by hegemony education protocols." Cautiously, Marcus accepted the crystal. "Why help me? Some of us remember what freedom meant," Thax replied. "And we recognize the same hunger in your species that once defined ours." The alien's compound eyes shifted, scanning for surveillance. The hegemony sees patterns but misses connections. They have spread their knowledge too thin across too many subject races, maintaining control by ensuring no single species possesses complete understanding. Back on Earth, as Marcus's intelligence filtered in, Alina's team was shocked by an unexpected arrival. A small, unauthorized shuttle evaded Earth's defensive grid and landed directly outside their Australian facility before anyone could intercept it. Inside was Klizar, a reptilian scientist from the Draconis system, his scales bearing the distinctive scarification of a hegemony exile. The security team surrounded him with weapons drawn as Alina arrived. "I've come seeking asylum," the alien said, raising his clawed hands in what he clearly researched as a human gesture of surrender. "And to offer my assistance to Project Phoenix." Alina's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." Klizar's vertical pupils narrowed. "Please, the hegemony believes they've hidden your project, but whispers spread. A human initiative repurposing discarded technology. It's precisely what the collective resistance has been waiting for." "Collective resistance?" Dr. Kazini asked, stepping forward despite security's objections. "Groups within every subjugated species working to preserve knowledge the hegemony tries to erase," Klizar explained. "We share what we can, when we can, but communication is difficult and dangerous." To prove his sincerity, the alien gestured to a device he'd brought. A stabilization matrix that perfectly solved the shield fluctuation problems they'd been struggling with for weeks. "Your hybrid technology approach is unprecedented," Klizar said as the team cautiously examined his offering. "The hegemony has deliberately structured their empire to prevent this kind of innovation. Each species knows their assigned piece, but never the whole." Alina studied the alien carefully. "And why should we trust you?" Klizar's scaled lips formed what might have been a smile. "Because, like you, I've seen the weakness in their system. The hegemony doesn't fear your weapons or your numbers. They fear your perspective, the connections you're making that they've spent millennia keeping separate." The Phoenix took shape in the vast underground hangar, growing more impressive each day as the team incorporated technologies no hegemony engineer would ever have combined. Alina stood on the observation platform, watching as Rosa Chen directed the installation of the innovative hull plating system. The carbon nanotube weave acts as both structural reinforcement and data transmission network, Rosa explained to a group of engineers. "The alien alloys provide the baseline strength, but our weave makes it adaptive. It'll learn from damage and redistribute resources accordingly." The integration of human and alien technology had progressed beyond their initial hopes. Klizar had proven himself an invaluable ally, his knowledge of draconian shield technology filling critical gaps in their understanding. Working alongside Dr. Kazemi, they had created something unprecedented. Traditional hegemony shields tried to deflect energy. Kazemi demonstrated to the military observers who'd come to evaluate their progress. It's effective but requires massive power expenditure. On the testing range, A small prototype of their shield system hummed to life around a test structure. When the observers fired a laser at the shield, instead of the expected deflection, the energy was absorbed, causing the shield to glow briefly. "Hit us harder," Kazemi challenged with a grin. The observers increased the laser's power. This time, when it struck the shield, the energy seemed to flow across the surface before being channeled down into the base of the test structure, where a series of capacitors registered a significant charge. "We don't just stop attacks," Kazemi explained. "We convert them to usable power. The harder you hit us, the stronger we become," Elena finished, watching the military officials exchange meaningful glances. The project nearly unraveled when Director Okafor arrived with alarming news. A hegemony inspection team was arriving in 6 hours, led by Admiral Vostar himself. "They claim it's a routine assessment of human recycling efforts," Okafor said, "but the timing is suspicious. They may have detected something." Elena gathered her team leaders immediately. "We can't move the Phoenix, and we can't hide something this size, so we don't hide it. We disguise it." What followed was a frantic scramble as the project shifted to its contingency plan. Key components were removed and distributed throughout the facility. The revolutionary shield generators were reconfigured to resemble modern art installations. The weapons systems were disassembled and displayed as primitive manufacturing equipment. The hull sections were presented as material studies. Most crucially, the Phoenix's heart, the dimensional drive core that Dr. Kazemi had perfected, was hidden in plain sight on Elena's desk, reconfigured to appear as a failed human attempt to understand alien technology. Jin Wu and his team worked frantically to alter the facility's data systems, creating a false trail of research that showed humans struggling to comprehend even basic hegemony concepts. When Admiral Vostar arrived, Elena met him with the appropriately deferential manner expected of a subject species. The Admiral's 8-foot frame dominated the briefing room as he reviewed their supposed progress. "Explain your power consumption," he demanded, examining facility records. "It exceeds parameters for a recycling operation." Elena had prepared for this. "We've been inefficient in our attempts to melt down certain alloys," she admitted with calculated embarrassment. "Our understanding of metallurgical processes is limited compared to the hegemony's wisdom." The Admiral seemed satisfied by this acknowledgement of human inadequacy. As he toured the facility, his eyes passed over technologies that could challenge the hegemony's dominance without recognition, seeing only what he expected to see: primitive humans fumbling with advanced concepts. The inspection's most dangerous moment came when the Admiral paused at Elena's desk, his gaze falling on the disguised drive core sitting beneath a coffee mug labeled "World's Best Engineer." "What is this device?" he asked, reaching toward it. "A failed experiment," Elena replied, her heart pounding despite her calm exterior. "We thought it might be an energy regulator, but we couldn't make it function. Perhaps in a few decades, we'll understand enough to properly utilize such technology." Admiral Vostar snorted dismissively, his hand withdrawing. "A few centuries would be insufficient," he said, turning away from the very heart of humanity's rebellion. Elena gripped the arms of the captain's chair as warning lights flashed across the Phoenix's half-finished bridge. The lunar assembly facility, hidden beneath the crater Tycho, had served them well until now, but their cover was blown. "Hegemony scanning vessels approaching from 3 vectors," Jin reported from his makeshift console, holographic displays flickering around him. "They've detected our power signature during the shield test." "Time to evacuation?" Elena asked, knowing the answer wouldn't be good. 20 minutes, maybe less," said Marcus, who had been reassigned from the hegemony vessel to help with the Phoenix's final assembly. "Not enough time to dismantle anything significant." Elena made the decision instantly. "Prepare for emergency launch. All non-essential personnel to evacuation shuttles." Rose's eyes widened. "The drive calibration isn't complete. We could end up anywhere or nowhere." "We have no choice," Elena replied, activating the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is Commander Reyes. Launch Protocol Alpha. I repeat, Launch Protocol Alpha. This is not a drill. Throughout the massive vessel, system engineers scramble to secure loose components and seal partially completed sections. The Phoenix had been scheduled for its first proper test flight in 3 weeks. Now it would fly ready or not. Klazar worked frantically alongside Dr. Kazemi to stabilize the dimensional drive core. The containment field is holding at 70%, the alien reported. It should be sufficient for short jumps. The countdown echoed through the ship as massive clamps released their hold on the Phoenix's hull. The lunar facility's roof split open, revealing the star-filled blackness of space above. Main drive engaging in 3, 2. Rose's countdown was cut short as the Phoenix leaped upward with unexpected force, throwing the unprepared crew against their restraints. The acceleration was far beyond their calculations, sending the vessel hurtling past Earth's orbit in seconds. When they finally stabilized, the navigational display showed they had covered more distance in moments than any hegemony vessel could achieve in hours. That was, Rosa brushed a bloodied lip with the back of her hand, grinning despite the pain, a minor calibration issue. The bridge crew's nervous laughter was cut short when Jin's sensor station began pulsing with alerts. Hegemony Patrol Squadron detected, he announced, bringing the tactical display online. 6 destroyers conducting battle drills near the Jupiter exclusion zone. Elena faced a critical decision. They could retreat, risking a dimensional jump with their untested drive, or they could hold position and potentially be discovered. Or they could seize an unprecedented opportunity. Engage the cloaking system, she ordered. All systems to passive mode only. The Phoenix's experimental cloaking technology, combining reflective materials with Jin's algorithm that created false sensor readings, enveloped the ship as Elena guided it into a silent drift among the hegemony's warships. For 6 breathtaking hours, they recorded everything. Weapons capabilities revealed during the drills, communication protocols exchanged between ships, shield frequencies being tested, and tactical discussions the aliens didn't bother to encrypt. They're completely confident in their superiority, Marcus whispered as they listened to alien commanders casually discussing fleet movements throughout human space. The most chilling conversation came toward the end of their observation, when 2 hegemony captains discussed the long-term plans for Earth. The integration period ends in approximately 17 cycles, said one commander. After human labor has properly cataloged and prepared all viable resources, Central Command has approved processing of the biosphere. Any resistance expected? Asked the second. From humans. The first commander's translated voice carried unmistakable amusement. Their military capability was assessed as negligible. They'll likely be grateful for relocation to the labor colonies before terraforming begins. Silence fell across the Phoenix's bridge as the implications became clear. Earth wasn't being incorporated into the hegemony. It was being harvested, with its human population merely a temporary workforce. We need to accelerate our timeline, Elena said quietly, her resolve hardening. The Phoenix needs to be combat-ready sooner than we planned. As they prepared to slip away from the hegemony fleet, Jin made a final discovery while sifting through the intercepted data. Commander, I found something interesting in their secure transmissions. References to something called the Ascension Prophecy that has their religious caste in an uproar. Elena adjusted the uncomfortable formal uniform as she moved through the Grand Unity celebration, the elaborate diplomatic reception hosted aboard the hegemony's massive station in Earth orbit. Representatives from 20 subjugated worlds mingled under the watchful eyes of their conquerors, all pretending to celebrate their voluntary integration into the Galactic Empire. The Phoenix team had returned from their impromptu test flight with precious intelligence and a daring plan. Rather than hiding from the coming diplomatic gathering, they would use it to their advantage, making first contact with potential allies from other worlds. Remember, use only the coded phrases we practiced. Elena had instructed her team members, who were strategically placed throughout the event. If anyone responds with the recognition signal, show them only the approved holographic evidence. Nothing that reveals the Phoenix's location or full capabilities. She paused before a viewport overlooking Earth, sipping from a glass of Hegemony synthetic wine, a bland approximation of human beverages created for the occasion. A blue-skinned mathematician from Proxima Centauri joined her, seemingly by coincidence. "The view is quite magnificent," Alina said, using their first recognition phrase. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, right to left, then left to right. The countersign. "Yes, though I find the perspective somewhat limiting," he replied softly. Alina casually adjusted her sleeve, revealing a small projector embedded in her bracelet. A momentary flicker showed an image of the Phoenix executing maneuvers impossible for any known hegemony vessel. The mathematician's outer eyelids widened fractionally, the only sign of his astonishment. "A theoretical concept?" he asked, voice carefully controlled. "Fully operational," Alina confirmed, "and not unique in potential. Every subjugated world has pieces of the puzzle." Similar exchanges occurred across the reception. Dr. Kazemi engaged a crystalline philosopher from the silicon world of Diamis, whose geometric thought patterns had been deemed inefficient by hegemony standards. Marcus spoke with a collective intelligence representing the cloud cities of Varan, whose gaseous form concealed advanced technological understanding. Meanwhile, disguised as a server, Kluzar moved through the gathering, his modified universal translator capturing fragments of private conversations among the hegemony leadership. Near a refreshment station, he overheard 2 high priests of the hegemony's religious caste speaking in their native tongue, unaware that their translation modules were inactive. "The signs are unmistakable," one priest said, mandibles clicking with agitation. "Energy signatures matching the ascension texts have been detected in this very system." "Impossible," the second argued. "The prophecy speaks of a vessel built from discarded knowledge that will overturn the established order. No subject species possesses such capability." Yet the readings persist. The archivists grow concerned enough to recommend acceleration of the Earth processing timeline. Kluzar nearly dropped his serving tray, forcing himself to continue his rounds while transmitting this alarming intelligence to Alina through their secure communication link. The situation grew more complex when Alina noticed High Commander Zolvan, Vostar's second-in-command, approaching her directly. The towering alien moved with deliberate purpose, his ceremonial armor glinting under the reception hall's lights. "Commander Reyes," he greeted with surprising courtesy. "A moment of your time." Alina adopted the appropriately deferential posture expected of humans. "High Commander, I am honored." The alien's compound eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. "An interesting accessory you wear," he said, pointing to the small phoenix-shaped pin on her collar, their secret recognition symbol for potential allies. Alina's pulse quickened, but her expression remained neutral. "Thank you, Commander. A simple Earth design." "Curious," Zolvan replied. "My cultural attaché believes it resembles a figure from one of our ancient texts, a symbol associated with transformation and renewal." His translator couldn't fully convey the subtle harmonics in his voice, but the implication was clear. "I would be most interested in learning its significance to humans." Alina realized with a chill that the conversation was being closely observed by other hegemony officials. This wasn't a casual inquiry, it was a test. And based on the tension suddenly radiating from her hegemony observers, far more was at stake than she had initially realized. The Phoenix crew worked with frantic intensity as they raced toward the Arcturus system. News of the hegemony's imminent attack had reached them through their growing network of allies. The fleet was preparing to make an example of the newly discovered civilization that had refused to surrender. "Shield generators at 87%, reported Dr. Kazemi, finalizing adjustments to systems that had only been theoretical days earlier. The energy absorption matrix is stable, but untested at full capacity." Throughout the ship, teams installed components even as they traveled, the vessel continuing to evolve during its journey. Alina had made the difficult decision to launch before the Phoenix was fully complete. There simply wasn't time to wait. "Weapons systems?" she asked, reviewing the latest status reports. Rosa looked up from her engineering station. The conventional systems are online, but our special package is, well, it's either going to work spectacularly or fail spectacularly. No middle ground. Jin interrupted from the communications array. Incoming transmission from our contact on Viren. The hegemony fleet has arrived at Arcturus. 9 dreadnoughts in attack formation. Silence fell across the bridge. A single hegemony dreadnought could devastate a planet's surface within hours. 9 of them represented overwhelming force against a civilization that had barely achieved spaceflight. We can't possibly defeat 9 capital ships. Marcus voiced what everyone was thinking, his expression grim. Elena rose from the captain's chair, her decision made. We don't need to defeat them, she said, activating the ship-wide communication system. This isn't a battle. It's an announcement. She outlined her plan to the crew, bold to the point of recklessness, but with potential to change everything. As they made final preparations, Kluzor approached her privately. The ascension prophecy I mentioned, the alien said quietly. In its complete form, it speaks of a vessel born from cast-off knowledge that appears between the destroyers and their prey, absorbing their fury and turning it back upon them. Elena gave him a measured look. You didn't think this was worth mentioning earlier. I thought it's superstition, Kluzar admitted, until I saw your plan. The Phoenix arrived at Arcturus to find a horrifying tableau. The 9 massive hegemony dreadnoughts had formed a perfect bombardment pattern around a blue-green world, civilian ships fleeing in terror as the alien fleet prepared their weapons. Elena gave the order that would either save a civilization or doom her own. Execute dimensional jump. Emergence point, directly between the hegemony fleet and the planet. The Phoenix performed the impossible, emerging from faster-than-light travel with pinpoint precision into the narrow space between the attacking fleet and their target. Alarms blared as hegemony targeting systems locked onto the unexpected arrival. Broadcast on all frequencies, Elena commanded, including the secure hegemony channels. Jin activated what would become the most viewed transmission in galactic history, broadcasting to all ships and planetary systems. The lead hegemony dreadnought fired its main cannon without warning, a searing beam of energy that would have vaporized any conventional vessel. Instead, the Phoenix's revolutionary shields absorbed the attack, the ship's exterior glowing with captured power. Energy absorption at 120% of projected capacity, reported Dr. Kazemi, excitement overriding concern. The system is working better than our models predicted. Rosa, execute Phoenix Protocol 1. Elena ordered calmly. Rosa's hands flew across her console, redirecting absorbed energy to the precision array. The Phoenix transformed the dreadnought's own weapon energy into a precisely focused cutting beam that sliced through the flagship's main weapon array with surgical precision, disabling it without causing casualties. Before the stunned hegemony fleet could respond, the Phoenix deployed its second innovation. Rosa's engine bubble expanded outward, temporarily disrupting the propulsion systems of every vessel in the formation, leaving them powerless but unharmed. 6 months after the Arcturus demonstration, as it had come to be known throughout the galaxy, the Phoenix led a remarkable procession back to Earth. Behind it followed vessels of every imaginable configuration, 37 formerly subjugated species now united in the cooperative of independent worlds. The ship itself had evolved beyond its creator's vision. No longer a patchwork of salvaged components, it had become a living symbol of collaborative innovation. Each member species had contributed their unique expertise, transforming the Phoenix into something that transcended any single world's technology. From the crystalline engineers of Diamas came sensor arrays that could perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously. The biotechnical Veru provided living hull components that self-repaired and adapted to damage. Jovian atmospheric specialists had developed environmental systems that allowed the crew to accommodate any species aboard without special equipment. Elena stood in the newly constructed Unity dock, extending from Earth's first space elevator, watching as representatives from dozens of worlds mingled freely. 6 months ago, She had been a military commander fighting against subjugation. Now she served as Chancellor of the Cooperative's Innovation Exchange, overseeing the greatest technological renaissance in known history. Hard to believe it all started with a pile of junk they thought was worthless, Rosa said, joining Elena at the observation window. The former mechanic now headed the Cooperative's Propulsion Research Division, her intuitive understanding of engine dynamics having revolutionized interstellar travel. Not junk, Elena corrected with a smile. Just misunderstood potential, the same way they misunderstood us. Across the dock, Dr. Kazini and Klazar huddled over holographic projections with a diverse team of scientists. Their current project focused on restoration technology, systems designed to heal environments damaged by centuries of hegemony resource extraction. The equations are balanced, Klazar was explaining to a group that included species that would have been mortal enemies under hegemony rule. By combining Jovian atmospheric cycling with Earth's bioremediation techniques, we can accelerate planetary healing by an order of magnitude. The hegemony itself had transformed in the wake of the Phoenix's emergence. What began as a demonstration of power had triggered something unexpected, a philosophical revolution. Many within the Empire had grown disillusioned with its stagnant hierarchy over centuries. When the Phoenix broadcast Jin's algorithm, overriding every hegemony communication system to share detailed technical specifications freely with all worlds, the Empire's foundation of controlled knowledge began to crumble. Reports from the core worlds, Jin announced, approaching with a data tablet. The young hacker had matured into the Cooperative's Chief of Information Systems. 3 more hegemony sectors have joined the Cooperative. Their fleet commanders transferred power to civilian authorities without resistance. Through the dock's transparent ceiling, the fragments of the once feared hegemony battle fleet could be seen in orbit, their weapons removed, their crews freed, their components being studied by eager multi-species engineering teams. The ships that had once threatened extinction now served as orbiting research platforms and housing for diplomatic delegations. Marcus Wong joined them, having just returned from a diplomatic mission to formerly hegemony-controlled worlds. The transition in the outer systems is proceeding smoothly, he reported. Most worlds are eager to join once they understand our principles, shared knowledge and mutual respect, rather than imposed hierarchy. As a celebration broke out across the dock, marking the anniversary of first contact, Elena reflected on their journey. What had begun as a desperate act of resistance had evolved into something far more profound, a new model for galactic civilization. They gave us scraps, Rosa said, producing a bottle of champagne as crew members from a dozen worlds gathered around. But we never needed their charity. We just needed the chance to show the galaxy a different way forward. To the Phoenix, Elena proposed, raising her glass. And to what rises next, Klazar added, joining the toast with his species' traditional gesture of hope.